All right, so y'all, today we're talking about parallel and perpendicular lines. So parallel lines, what does that mean? What are parallel lines? They go the same way. What you mean? They never touch, right? So they look like railroad tracks, right? They go on forever and ever and never touch. So what about perpendicular lines? They're what? Perpendicular. They meet at what kind of angle specifically? Do you remember? At a right angle, right? So that's perpendicular lines. So we're talking about parallel and perpendicular. So parallel lines, we said, are the same, right? They're going to go on forever and never touch, kind of like railroad tracks. So they're going to have the same slope. So think about it. If you've got like a line that's, I don't know, y equals 2x plus 4, and then y equals 2x minus 4, the y-intercepts are different, but the slope is the same. So that means you're going to start at different points, but you're still counting up 2 over 1 every time. So they're going to go on forever and ever and never touch. So basically, you just need to know that parallel lines have the same slopes. So the symbol for parallel is right here, and it kind of looks like turned on its side. What does this look like turned on its side? An equal sign. So like equal signs. Exactly. So we're talking about horizontal lines. Show me what a horizontal line looks like.
Horizontal line. You see the horizon.
This one, right? So what if you have 2? What kind of lines are they? Parallel. So your horizontal lines are always parallel to each other. What about a vertical line? What does that look like? A vertical line?
It's like this.
It's like this, right? So if you have 2 of them, then what are they? Parallel. Do y'all remember the slope for a horizontal line?
Okay.
Think about Hoy bucks. H-O-Y. 0. What about vertical? What kind of slope do they have? That's the bucks part. The U stands for undefined. Yeah? So they're both going to have that undefined slope, or they both have that 0 slope. It gives you your symbol for parallel. That's about it for parallel. So anytime they tell you something is parallel, that's going to be important because the slopes are what? The same. So anytime you hear parallel, you need to be thinking same slope. Okay? So just go ahead and get that ingrained in you right now. So parallel, what are we thinking? Same slope. Perpendicular lines, do they have the same slope? It's not just different. We have a special phrase. They are different. But it's called opposite. What? Do you know? Anybody know?
Slope.
Not quite. It does start with the R.
Reciprocal.
Do we know what that means?
I just know.
I spelled it wrong.
It means you multiply by
Round, third, block, to restore to the auxiliary
Adding to
ten,
what?
then brown, third block.
It goes like 2 fish. Multiply 2 fish by 5, 2.
So opposite reciprocal. Opposite means to change your sign. So if it's positive, you make it negative. If it's negative, you make it positive. Reciprocal means you flip it. So if it's 2 over 5, what do you flip it to? 5 over 2. If it's like the whole number 2, what would it be when you flip it?
2 over 1. 1 over 2.
1 over 2, right? Is that okay? So that's what you need to know for perpendicular lines. So anytime you see something about perpendicular, you're thinking opposite reciprocal slopes. Yeah? So flip it and change the sign. Maybe we should write that over here.
Why did you let him in?
I told you not to. I told you her. No, I said Adam.
So if you have one vertical line, show me what that looks like. If you have a vertical line, show me what that looks like.
Vertical. Like this right here.
So we got a vertical line. Then what if you also have a horizontal line?
That's right angle. 90 degrees.
What's going to happen? What would we call them?
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular, exactly. So that's what this is saying right here. So a vertical line and a horizontal line are always going to be perpendicular to each other. Your symbol is that upside down T. I think somebody said that earlier. That's right here. So then you've got some examples. So right here, what's the slope of this equation? What's the slope of the first equation they gave you? Negative 4/5, yeah?
Wait, I got a question.
What's up?
It says negative 4/5. That means the 4 is negative or the 5 is negative? Like,
We can always take it with the top. We always take it with the top, so you go down 4, right up. What's the slope of the second equation they gave you there?
second, 5,
5/4. So if we took this slope and we made it opposite, so instead of negative, it's now what?
positive.
Positive, and then we flip it. Instead of 4 over 5, what do we get?
5 over 4.
So is this the opposite reciprocal of this?
Yes.
Yes, so that means that these lines are perpendicular.
Good.
Is that okay? So that's what we were looking for. So for the next one, what's the slope of the first line?
2.
2. What's the slope of the second one?
1/2. Negative 1/2.
So if we took 2 and we made it opposite, instead of positive, it becomes
Whoa. You're so smart.
negative. And then when you flip it, that reciprocal part, instead of 2 over 1, what do you get?
2.
So are these opposite reciprocals? Yes, that means those lines are perpendicular. Is that okay? Yes, no, maybe?
That's cool, man.
All right, cool. So then the last part, we've got y equals 4. So if you have y equals some number, what kind of line is that?
That's the horizontal.
That's horizontal, right? So that's going to go side to side. What if you've got x equals 5? That's with the buck. So is it horizontal or vertical? Vertical, so up and down. So they're going to be what?
Parallel.
If you have one of these and one of these, they're
Well, perpendicular.
perpendicular, yeah? Every single time. So if you think about that, the slope of a horizontal line is what?
Huh?
What's the slope of a horizontal line?
0.
0. So 0 over something, right?
Okay.
What do we want to put for something? 4? We'll go with that. I don't really care. It's just something. And then what about for a vertical line? What's the slope?
It is something over 0.
Something over 0 because it's undefined, right? So something over 0. Now if you have 0, can you make it negative or positive? No. So the opposite part's kind of irrelevant. But when you make that a reciprocal, your 0 goes from to the top to the bottom. Does that check out?
Confuse me. That's gonna confuse me.
Do you see how those are like opposite reciprocals?
Yeah, but you said that's not right. That's gonna confuse me. I'm confused. You said that we could, wait, hold on. Since the 0, we can't flip it. It doesn't have anything. It doesn't have anything.
That you can't really make it opposite. Like it's not going to be positive or negative. It's just 0. So you don't have to worry about the opposite bit, but you can do the reciprocal part and flip it. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
So that's just showing you why those are perpendicular. But as long as you know that a horizontal line and a vertical line are going to be perpendicular to each other, then you're fine. You don't really have to know that. Is that okay? Yes, no, maybe?
Yes. See.
All right, so the bottom section here, we are going to decide if the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. So if they're parallel, what are we looking to see? Somebody said it. Same slope, yeah? So I'm going to write that same.
That one right there.
What about perpendicular? What are we looking to see?
The same wires.
The same opposite.
Same opposite slope.
It's opposite reciprocal slopes. Opposite. I'm not going to spell that all out. And then if it's neither, then they're just not related at all. The slopes aren't related. We're going to use our symbols here for like parallel, perpendicular. So what's the symbol for parallel?
It's the upside down T. No, it's the 2 lines. The
Two lines that kind of looks like an equal sign, but turned on a side, right?
Yeah.
Because they have equal slopes, right?
Yeah.
And then perpendicular is what?
Upside down T.
That's your upside down T. So we're going to use those here.
Oh, it's in the L's too. Look right there. In parallel, it's the L's
Yeah.
in parallel. Boom.
All right, so for number 1, what's the slope of the first line? What's the slope of the first line? 4. What's the slope of the second line?
Y'all are talking to me.
The slope of the first line is what? The slope of the second line is what?
4.
So since they have equal slopes, what does that mean? They're what? Parallel. Do you have questions on that?
No.
Because I was hearing a bunch of different answers that weren't even remotely close to right.
Evan's over here 12, 19, 22. Talking.
You said 12.
I did hear 12. That might say 12.
Evan is big.
All right, look at number 2. What's the slope of the first line?
6, 7.
6
6 over 7. What's the slope of the second line? Are those opposite signs? Are those opposite signs? And did we just flip the fractions?
Yes.
Yes, so what does that mean? Perpendicular. What about number 3? What's the slope of the first line? 3. What's the slope of the second line? 2/5. Are those the same?
No.
Are they opposite reciprocal?
Yes.
So neither. So those lines are going to intersect somewhere, but it's not going to be at a 90-degree angle. Is that all right? All right, so what about number 4? What's the slope there? Or on the first one? 1. What's the slope on the second one? -1. So are those opposite?
Yes.
Are they reciprocal? If I take 1, that's the slope of the first one, right?
Yeah.
And how can I write that as a fraction? 1 over what?
-1.
When you flip it, what do you get?
1.
So are those opposite reciprocals?
No. Oh, everybody goes home.
What do we think?
Number 3 says
Yes.
Are they parallel or are they perpendicular? Perpendicular. Do we understand number 4?
That's a negative. Yeah.
So one's positive, one's negative. So we already know that they're opposites. We're checking to see if they're reciprocal. So if you have 1 over 1 and you flip that, you still have 1 over 1. So that's why the slope just stayed 1 both times. That okay? So for number 5, we've got x equals 8. So show me what that looks like. If you got x equals some number, what kind of line is that?
Bucks. Boy, bucks. Bucks.
X equals 8. What kind of line is it? Vertical or horizontal?
Vertical.
Vertical. So you got one of these. Then we've got y equals 5. So is that horizontal or vertical? Horizontal. So what are they going to be? Perpendicular. So for number 6, you've got x equals 6. So what's that going to be?
Students, can I have Mr. Bird, third block, to report to the auxiliary gym? Mr. Bird, third block, report to the auxiliary gym.
at this time.
If you have x equals 6, what does that look like? X equals some number. Is it horizontal or vertical?
It's vertical. It's vertical.
Vertical. So we got one of these, yeah? Then you've got x equals -4. So is that horizontal or vertical? So we got another one of these. So what are they going to be? Parallel. Then for number 7, we've got y equals 9. So what's that going to look like? Right here, right? Then you've got y equals -2. What does that look like? Another one. So what are they going to be?
Parallel. Something. Somebody said perpendicular to me.
So looking at number 8, what's different about those equations?
They're flipped. The whole thing's switched.
You got to solve for y, right? Because all these others were solved for y, so we could look at it and tell what the slope was, right? You can't do that with these because they're not solved for y yet. So what do we need to do first? We got to solve for y, right? So looking at the first one, what's our first step to get y by itself there?
Minus 30x.
So we've got 5y equals -3x plus 10. Why can't we combine those two? Why can't we just make it like 13x over there?
Because if your kid don't got an X, man, you can't do that.
Exactly, they're not like terms, so you cannot combine them. Then what do we do from here?
Divide.
So we've got y equals negative 3/5 x plus 2. So for the second one, what do we need to do there to solve for y?
Wait, what's it say about x plus what?
12.
How'd you,
Oh, sorry.
how'd you do that?
What do you mean how we do that?
Like three, never mind. I knew about them there.
What do we do from there? So compare your slopes now. What's the slope of the first one? What's the slope of the second one? So are those opposite reciprocals? Yeah, we got opposite signs. You flip the fractions. They're the same. So what does that mean? Perpendicular. So we're going to pause on the notes for right now. We'll come back to them in just a second. For next, so I need you to pay attention. I need you to be facing front. And please don't talk while I'm trying to go over this, okay? Because I guarantee if you do, you're not going to understand what's going on, and I'm not going to be happy with you when you ask me to explain it again. So for all of these, we're writing the equation of a line, okay? So when you write the equation of a line, can you guess what form it might need to be in? It needs to be in y equals mx plus b, yeah? What does that m stand for? What does that b stand for?
Slope and y-intercept.
Slope and y-intercept. So m is slope. B is y-intercept. Those are the two things that you need to write the equation of a line. Are we good with that? Yes? You've got to have slope. You've got to have y-intercept. So for the first one, it wants us to write the equation of a line that is parallel to this one and contains this point. So earlier I said anytime they tell you something is parallel, what do we need to be thinking? Same slope. So anytime they mention something is parallel, you're thinking same slope. If they mention that it's perpendicular, you're thinking opposite reciprocal. So you're always looking at your slope with either of those two words, okay? So they said it's parallel. So what do we need from this equation? Same slope, right? Because we said parallel lines mean same slope. So what's the slope of this line? 4. So what's the slope of our line? Probably also going to be 4 because it's parallel, so it's got to be exactly the same, right? So we've got our slope. What other thing do we need to write the equation of a line? Or y-intercept. Do we have that? There's not really a way for us to find it just right now by looking at stuff. They tell us that it contains this point. So here's how you're going to use that. You're going to use the point that they gave you as an x and a y. Then you're going to take the slope that they gave you. You're going to plug in all the information that you have to here. And then we'll solve for that b. Okay, so this is how you're going to do that. In place of y, and y equals mx plus b. I'm going to write it out here. We're going to write it. Instead of y, what can I put in its place? What do we know that y equals at some point? -1. In place of m, what can I put? Because we know that our slope is 4. What do we know that x equals at some point?
Parks start the lock to report to the auxiliary GM, then Parks start the lock to report to the auxiliary GM.
Are we okay so far? Do we understand where all that stuff came from and why we put it where we put it? So now we can solve for that b and we'll know what our y-intercept is. So if we have 4 times negative 3, what is that? So you've got negative 1 equals negative 12 plus b. How are we going to get b by itself? Add 12. So it's negative 1 plus 12. So 11 equals b. And that's our y-intercept. Are we okay? So now we have our y-intercept and we have our slope. We're good to write the equation of our line. Is that okay? So you're only going to replace the m and the b. So the equation of our line is going to be y equals, and instead of m, what are we putting? Because that's what our slope is. We found that from the beginning, right? And then we've got an x, and then instead of b, what are we putting? Plus 11, because that's the slope, the y-intercept that we solved for. So that would be our final answer there. So this is on the back of our notes. I don't know why some of us are just chilling right now. This is the second half of the notes, yeah? Is that okay? Do you have any questions right now? Alright, so let's do another one. We'll go ahead and do number 2 because it's pretty similar. This time it tells us that the line is perpendicular to y equals 1 over 8x minus 5. So if they say perpendicular, what are we thinking? Not same slope. Opposite reciprocal. So what's the slope of this line?
Report to the auxiliary GM. Mr. Renew start the lock to the auxiliary GM.
What's the slope of the line that they gave us? 1/8. So our slope needs to be opposite reciprocal, right? So instead of positive, what's it going to be? Negative. Instead of 1 over 8, what are we going to have? 8 over 1. So really, it's just like negative 8, right? Are we all right with that? So we have our slope. What's the other piece of information you need to write the equation of a line? Your y-intercept, right? They give you a point. This is an x and a y. We can use that and the slope that we have to solve for that y-intercept that we need. So again, you're using y equals mx plus b. And we're going to plug in all the information that we do have to find the information that we need. So again, we're looking for that y-intercept, that b value. So what can we put in place of y? Negative 4. I think some of us are getting confused with this. This equation they gave you, all we needed from that was the slope. So once you get the slope that we need, you can mark it out. Don't look anymore because it's only going to confuse you, okay? Our y value that they gave us was negative 4. What can we put in place of m? What do we find that our slope needs to be? Negative 8. What about our x? What's the x they gave us? 3 plus b. So from there we can solve for b. What's negative 8 times 3? Negative 24, so we've got negative 4 equals negative 24 plus b. How are we going to figure out what b is? Add 24. So negative 4 plus 24, what do we get?
Russell start the lock. Ms. Russell start the lock to report to the auxiliary GM.
20? Is that okay? So now we have a b and we have our m, so we're good to write the equation of our line, yeah? So again, you're using that y equals mx plus b, and we're only replacing the m and the b. So you'll still have y equals, in place of m, what are we putting? Negative 8. And then you'll still have x, and then we'll replace the b. So in place of b, what are we putting? 20. So that's the equation of our line. Questions on that? Are we okay? All right. So for the next one, it tells us that the line is parallel to this and passes through this point. So again, we know we're going to use that point as our x and y value. Before we can do that, though, we've got to pull the slope from this line. They tell us that it's parallel. So our slope is going to be the what? Same, right? If it's parallel, it's got to be the same. Do we know what the slope of this line is right now? How are we going to find it? Solve for what? Solve for what? What's our first step to do that? Minus 2x. And what's our next step from there? Divide by what? Negative 3. So negative 2x divided by negative 3. What is that? Somebody said 2/3 or 2 over 3. And then 9 divided by negative 3. Negative 3. So we're solved for y, or solved for y. What do we need from that? They told us that we're parallel to that, so what do you need? Your slope, right? And what is the slope here? 2/3. Since ours is parallel, is it going to be the same or opposite reciprocal? Same. So what's our slope going to be? 2/3. Do we need anything else from here?
Can I get this under third block?
So mark it out. Don't look at it anymore at all. All we did was your slope.
Third block.
We've got that. M equals 2 over 3. So we've got a slope. What do you still need to write the equation of your line? The b, your y-intercept, right? So we've got an m. We've got x and y. So we got to plug all that stuff into y equals mx plus b. So instead of y, what can we put? Negative 2. In place of m, what can we put? Instead of x, what can we put? And then plus b, because that's what you're solving for, so we don't know what it is yet. So we've got 2/3 times 4. What is that? Somebody said it. I said 2 over 3 times 4 over 1. So multiply straight across, so it's 2 times 4. 8 and 3 times 1. What do we do from there? Minus 8/3. So we've got negative 2 minus 8 over 3. So that's kind of like negative 6 over 3 minus 8 over 3. So it's negative 6 and negative 8. So that whole thing is negative 14 over 3. Is that okay? So if you're not sure how to do those fractions, you could definitely use your calculator to get you there. It's no big deal. So once you've got your m and you've got your b, we can write the equation of our line. So we'll have y equals, in place of m, what are we putting? You'll leave x in there, and then what are we putting for our b?
Negative 14.
There you go. Is that okay? Questions on that? Is there anything that we're not quite sure about or don't understand? Alright. So we'll do one more together, then I want you to try the last two on your own. So for number 4, the line is perpendicular to this one and passes through the point 4, negative 2. So we know that later you're going to use that 4, negative 2 as your x and y. They're telling us that our line is perpendicular to this one. So why is that important? What do we need to be looking for? Opposite reciprocal what? Slope, right? Anytime you see parallel or perpendicular, what are you thinking? Opposite reciprocal slope or same slope? Always slope though, right? For either one, we gotta know what the slope is. So can we look at this equation and tell what your slope is right now? We can? What do we have to do first? Solve for what? Solve for y. We gotta get y by itself because we want it to be in y equals mx plus b so we can see that m. So to solve for y, what do you need to do first there? Then what's our next step to get y all by itself? Divide by 3. What is 12x divided by 3? And 9 divided by 3?
3.
What did we need from that? The slope. So what is the slope there? Ours needs to be perpendicular. So what's ours going to be? Instead of positive 4, it'd be negative. Instead of 4 over 1, we've got 1 over 4. Do we need anything else from that equation? So mark it out. Don't look at it anymore. You're done with it. Is that okay? So we've got a slope. What else do you need to write the equation of a line? The x and the y are going to help us find what? The b, right? We got to find that y-intercept. So we're going to use y equals mx plus b. And we're plugging in everything we do know to find the stuff that we don't know. So what can we put in place of y? -2 in place of m. In place of x. And for b, we'll just have b still because we don't know what that is. So we've got -1/4 times 4. What is that? Nope. Nope. -1, right? Do y'all remember how we multiply by denominators to get the fraction to go away? That's what we're doing right here, right? You're doing 1 over 4 times 4, multiply by the denominator so it goes away. That just gives you a -1 plus b. Then what do we do to get b by itself? Or just plus 1? So -2 plus 1 gives you what? -1 equals b. So now you've got your m, you've got your b. We're good to write the equation of our line. So again, you're just replacing m and b. Y and x are going to stay in there. So y equals, what goes in place of m? -1/4 x, and then in place of b? -1. That's our final answer, and we're good to go. That okay? Do you have questions on that? So do y'all think you're ready to try the next two on your own? Yeah? Okay, good. So y'all do that, and we'll go over them in a couple minutes.